That might.
All right.
Right.
Are we live?
Yes, we are.
All right. Well, hi, and welcome to an Artful Advocacy, an afternoon of Artful Advocacy. I'm Blair Wickstrom, a board member of Bull Sugar and a Boatwater County captain. I'm also a publisher of Florida Sportsman Magazine, a fishing and outdoors brand with a 50-year history of conservation advocacy. Today's meeting is a result of failed public policy, and in part the result of overdraining the Everglades 60 years ago to stop the spread of communism. Seriously, stopping the spread of communism. That's why we have sugar in the Everglades. Our federal government brought the Fanguls, sugar farmers from Cuba, to Florida to grow sugar in the Everglades to put max economic pressure on Fidel Castro and his newly formed communistic government. The overdraining and sugar price supports, which makes it possible to grow sugar in the Everglades, still goes on today. It's corruption at its core. What we have is a political problem which needs a political solution. Enter votewater.org. In 2018, the proverbial house was on fire. The waters of much of our state were toxic green. 3 estuaries were under siege. 2 were drowning. The St. Lucie estuary on the East Coast, the Caloosahatchee on the West Coast, and 1 was starving, Florida Bay in South Florida. The people of Florida have had enough. Clearly, it was time for change. Today's meeting could be with a group of fishing advocacy groups from Southwest Florida or bird watchers from East Central Florida. But today we have artists from South Florida joining us to restore and preserve the only Everglades in the world. And with them, we bring this full circle by adding the influential policymaker from Dade County, or a influential policymaker. And this is how we get things done. All of us working together with a common goal. Today, for our Artful Advocacy afternoon, we've got Deborah Mitchell, who's a Miami Beach artist and curator. Deborah has participated in several artist residencies and was the executive director at a nonprofit artist in residence in Everglades program, ARI, for 5 years, where she curated 7 exhibitions in the only contemporary art gallery in the national park. In 2017, Mitchell wrote a book called Everglades Field Guide, From Reality to Memory. We've also got Ambrosia. She is the founder and executive director of Art Sale, Residency and Research Initiative. As an avid swimmer, diver, kiteboarder, since she moved to Miami in 2013, Ambrosia's interest and focus has shifted towards investigating how arts and culture can promote resilience and sustainability while moving communities from climate awareness to climate action. And then finally on the group, we're going to hear from Daniela Levine Cava. She's a county commissioner representing South Dade. She joined the county commission in 2014 as an independent champion for the people and planet. The Everglades Coalition honored Cava with their Public Service Award, recognizing her unwavering efforts to protect and restore the Everglades during their 35th annual conference in January earlier this year. And the Friends of Everglades honored Daniela with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Award at their 50th anniversary banquet in 2019. Daniela is now running for Miami-Dade County Mayor and has not only received a full endorsement by Bull Sugar and votewater.org, but has been acknowledged as a 2020 Water Warrior. So I'm looking forward to hearing from this group. Ambrosia, take over.
Thank you so much, Blair, for that kind introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today to moderate this really timely and crucial conversation. As Blair mentioned, my name is Umbretta Groh. I am a freelance curator by trade and a climate activist by passion. As I was writing these remarks, the Army Corps of Engineers announced the start of polluted Lake Okeechobee discharges to the San Lucie and Caloosahatchee estuaries as an effort to stem the rapid rate of lake level rise. With just a few days left in the typical rainy season, Floridians are now bracing for damage from Lake Okeechobee discharges. And just shy of 2 weeks before the general election, this is a painful reminder that our water management system fails to protect Florida's precious estuaries, and the operational rules that govern releases of water do not yet account for the dangers associated with cyanobacterial exposure. Not even 100 miles south, in Miami, where I'm from, Biscayne Bay has reached a tipping point. Pollution from sewage leaks, septic tanks, fertilizers, and stormwater runoff, along with record high temperatures in the lower 90s, is killing seagrass and marine life at an unprecedented rate. The dramatic fish kill that took place in August shook even skeptics Miamians to the core. For weeks, we saw images on local news and social media of dead fish floating across the bay and littering our shores, while marine life was quite literally gasping for air. And then we have the specter of the steady encroachment of salt water in the Biscayne aquifer, threatening the only source of fresh water for millions of South Floridians. However, we are not here today to drown in a collective despair. On the contrary, our goal for this timely conversation is to provide all of you watching us with the knowledge and the tools, like the Boat Water Guides, that allow us to be part of the solution. And that is to vote into power legislators at all levels of government who can change policy and ensure that our health and our precious ecosystem take priority over special interests. We will start this exciting journey with artist and curator Deborah Mitchell, as Blair stated, who will share some of her new work examining the intersection of art and ecology. In the words of Pedro Ramos, superintendent of Everglades National Park, Deborah's work always inspires us to connect with nature and motivates us to get out in it. Her passion for our natural wonders comes through with every one of her creations. After Deborah's exciting presentation, Blair Wickstrom, who just introduced us, publisher of Florida Sportsman and avid clean water advocate, will explain why Florida's water crisis is a political problem and requires a political solution. And we'll discuss the Boat Water Guides our host, BullSugar.org, compiled to ensure that we elect politicians committed to restoring the Everglades, holding polluters accountable, and for making human health a priority. And last but not least, we will hear from one of those politicians, Commissioner Daniela Levin Cava, also known as the Water Warrior, for her long-term commitment to fight for access to clean and safe water for all. On the County Commission, Daniela has fought to defend our lands from polluters and set goals for sustainability and energy efficiency. Now she's running to be our county mayor so that we can make Miami-Dade County a global leader in the fight against climate change. And let's make that happen together. At the end of these three presentations, we will open our virtual room for Q&A with the audience. So I encourage everyone to write their questions in the chat while the talks are happening, so we are ready for a dynamic discussion. Thank you all again for being here. A huge thanks for Ali from BullSugar for helping us on the back end. Thank you, Blair, for your introduction. And Deborah, the floor is all yours. Welcome.
Okay. Give me a minute, everybody, while I share screens. And how is that looking? Can you see that?
Perfect.
Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me today. It's really an honor to share my work with you. I do want to mention that we are so honored to have Umbretta joining us from Italy. So some of you might have noticed a little bit of delay in her dialogue. That is why. But the rest of us are local, so this should stream pretty well for you. The first couple of my own slides have information about ecosystem services for you. And I think that will help set up the rest of my 10-minute presentation in an understandable way on how everything is connected and relates to water. On most slides, like this one in front of you, you're going to see my artwork on the right, and on the left, either some text or supporting images of me in the field, all right? So protect the lands and oceans, reduce fossil fuel consumption, slow human population needs, and reconnect to the natural world. The long-term survival of species facing possible extinction depends on how we respond to this urgent call to action. I created Wild Observations as a traveling exhibition to use my art practice as an outreach tool to inspire others to take action for our health and our future. Constant change is especially evident in flyways, which continuously demonstrate that all of life is connected. Flyways are like wide arterial highways where migratory birds fly, rest, and feed. So think about what a fish eats, and then perhaps a migrating bird finds that in the ocean and picks it up, flies on south to a tree to eat it, and then drops the nutrient-rich carcass into the soil. This is a pretty good, understandable demonstration of the cycle of life in nature. Most of my research is done at field stations, which are like windows to these special ecosystems, where natural ecological responses to water, weather, animals, and even humans constantly change. Eradicating our remaining natural resources by deforestation, overfishing, and hunting will accelerate mass extinctions and change the way we have contact with the remaining places. It is therefore essential that we elect leaders who believe in science. Protected, well-managed land is crucial to maintain ecosystem integrity. As our population grows, you'll see here in this slide from Rachel Carson National Wildlife Refuge in Maine, that protected, valuable salt marshes and estuaries are so important for those migratory birds and fishes that I mentioned, because they're nourished by these coastal intertidal zones. However, even here, damaging marine heat waves and ocean acidification have altered marine habitats, as we've seen in California and, of course, Florida. Too much carbon dioxide saturates the atmosphere and then is absorbed by the ocean. This process makes it harder for animals to make their shells or skeletons, and is also linked to the process of coral bleaching. Unregulated hunting and habitat loss has prompted the reintroduction of various species to valued areas, like elk in the Great Smoky Mountains, wolves to Yellowstone, and panthers to the Everglades. Animals are resilient, but reintroduction is an expensive, risky effort, which should be avoided through careful wildlife monitoring and land management. Okay, so this is one of those slides where I'm going to break out and tell you that image on the left is an elk that fell asleep while I was observing him. And that for me was an incredibly transformative moment in a residency that I did at As If in North Carolina. And moments like that make me want to fight harder for our planet, for our oceans, for our children's future. Broken corridors have resulted in fragmented communities of bird populations in Florida. I transcribed sections of the 2019 Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission report here to provide the framework for the actions needed to ensure the long-term survival of bears. And again, underscoring that experience in the field, I saw those bears in the wild while studying at Artful Biological Station, and always enjoyed going by the Clewiston Inn to see that amazing old mural they have painted in their bar. These specimens are courtesy of the Rocky Mountain Biological Laboratory and South Florida Collections Management Center, which is in Everglades National Park. Birds are useful indicators of biodiversity, and changes in bird populations can provide an indication of broader environmental change. The vulnerable Florida scrub jay is found only in Florida scrub habitat, an ecosystem that exists in Central Florida and in limited areas along the Atlantic coast. It's characterized by nutrient-poor soil, occasional drought, and frequent wildfires. So you get the idea, again, of my process here, seeing that scrub jay on the bottom slide, checking out the preserved specimens they've had, I think, since the 1960s at Archbold. I believe it's the longest running study of a bird population. Those two amazing ornithologists, Mr. Fitzpatrick and Bowman, who helped me understand so much about these endemic birds, and then a detail of a painting on the right. Another enchanting bird I found at Archbold was the owl, overlaid here with population data from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Here, I painted portions of the Endangered Species Act on this vintage cabinet in English and Spanish, with endangered birds like the grasshopper sparrow and the snail kite. Someone left that old photo in the drawer, reminding us of the recreation that people have always enjoyed on our beaches. Last year, the Trump administration began rollbacks on over 80 laws, including the Endangered Species Act, significantly weakening this bedrock conservation law, making it harder to protect wildlife from threats posed by climate change. Pollinizadoras nocturnas. This is an image of my cyanotype print overlaid with an article from the New York Times en Espanol. It's about pollinators in the food web by Kendra Pierre-Louise. Pollinators are crucial to worldwide food production. A third of our fruit and vegetable crops are planted and pollinated by trees. The hole in the donut region, once a gator-loving habitat by Gladesman Glenn Simmons, is proving resilient as it nears the final 23rd year of scraping invasive species pepper plants on over 6,300 acres. The removal of this vast monoculture is a cooperative effort between Everglades National Park and several mitigating organizations. The goal of this work is to permanently remove the invasive species and then return the area to a marl prairie wetland rich with very many different types of wildlife. And as you can see on this image I took on the right, everything was already sprouting. The birds were singing. It was just an amazing experience to see this area come along. Hopefully we can assess our management of wild places like this before expensive, heroic efforts are needed to restore that natural process. Prescribed burns, as seen here in Everglades National Park, are now necessary to restore health to fire-dependent ecosystems. I want to thank so much Michael Guay and his wonderful team who took myself and other artists, including Sasha Wurtzel, Jessica Bennett, and Dara Friedman, into this habitat during this crazy, wild, and beautiful burn in January. It was such an educational experience. In light of the global pandemic, it's timely to consider the various ways that humans have accelerated climate change and how newly discovered bacteria and diseases may continue to emerge in future. This Paleo-era cave site at the Deering Estate may provide clues to the resilience of past civilizations by understanding how they survived severe climate-related changes. Invasive Ambrosia beetles have altered landscape in South Florida by eradicating most of the red bay trees. Tribal communities have depended on bay leaves for generations, using it in more than 90% of traditional medicinal and cultural applications. Another warrior that we have to thank for all of the many ways that he teaches people through Love the Everglades movement is Houston Hot Cypress, seen here with textile artist Regina Jestro. So prior to 1937, water from Lake Okeechobee moved by sheet flow over the Everglades. Now, most of the outflow is diverted to dredged canals. As native biodiversity declined, so has ecosystem integrity, noted by that Burmese python carcass floating on the left. Home to sacred tree islands of the Miccosukee tribe, this iconic sawgrass marsh is now a highly contested area. If we are not vigilant, 3A could face similar challenges to Biscayne Bay, as Ombretta mentioned, where thousands of fish carcasses created an algae bloom this past summer. Sadly, this was the recipe for a perfect storm created by those increased water temperatures, old leaky septic tanks, and fertilizer runoff. 1/3 of the population in South Florida relies on this collapsing ecological system for fresh water. Everglades restoration efforts have been slowed by land ownership issues, primarily associated with the production of sugar. Many factors figure into the health of the Lake Okeechobee, including outdated ranching and agricultural methods. Planned restoration efforts include a large reservoir, but for now, we continue to see toxic discharges from Lake Okeechobee to those very valuable coastal estuaries, resulting in health hazards caused by algae blooms. How will you respond to this call to action? I suggest that we elect leaders who will protect the lands and oceans, reduce fossil fuel consumption, and inspire us to slow human population needs and reconnect to the natural world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. I think clearly you and Bretta have stated exactly what we need to do. It's sort of a footprint of where we need to be. The can kicking, as we call it, the sort of the perpetual talk that has been going on for 100 years up here in the estuaries up here, when they first created a dam across the middle of the state, which you just talked about. That dam across the middle of the state used to be a lake. And unfortunately, we did have an issue, tragic issue, where we did have to secure essentially homes south of the lake by creating a dike. But that was more for the overdraining of the Everglades to try to bring a farming community to an area that wasn't being used. And somehow we felt like this was the important place where we needed to be to bring people to Florida. It's been a nightmare, and it's something we've been fighting for. It's the issue that has created this political problem. The idea that you touched on, that we need a political solution, is exactly right. We need leaders in office to change the laws to stop the can kicking. Essentially, as you stated, the science is settled. That's what our website says. It's time to fix the problem. And so, hence, here we are. We're volunteering a lot of time and effort over the last 6 months to build the Vote Water website. Clearly, what you can see is the Vote Water sign itself. These are yard signs, and what you see is it's by design nonpartisan. You don't see clearly anything about party involved in any of the recommendations and ratings. Everything is about water. Who we select is about their positions regarding water. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's water. It's nonpartisan by design. And so clean water, clearly we've got to preserve that for everyone. Floridians deserve the freedom to enjoy the outdoors in an environmentally safe manner. In 2018, hundreds of thousands of people used the Bull Sugar Voter Guide. For 2020, we've added to the team across a wider coverage area. And in that, we established 14 county captains. These are Vote Water captains in these very important areas around both coasts. County captains, again, we speak to them very clearly about being nonpartisan. Many have been fighting water issues for local nonprofits in their local communities for decades. The groups consist of business leaders, educators, fishing guides, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters. These aren't experts. They're not political pundits. They're people that care about their local area. And we established and have been working together since February on creating these voter guides. And so what we're fighting for and key issues in the 2020 elections, and this is basically the roadmap that we're going to try to hold these political candidates and leaders accountable for. And this is the first one. We want to hold major polluters accountable. We want to make human health a priority. We want to fully fund pollution monitoring and enforcement. We want to buy land in the EAA for storage and treatment, more than what we're basically relegated to now in the EAA. We want to elect sugar-free politicians from both sides. This is both sides. It's nonpartisan. We need sugar-free politicians. We want to lower Lake Okeechobee during the dry season. That's going to send more clean water south to where it's needed in Florida Bay and the Everglades, restoring the river of grass. We want to prioritize funding of sewer upgrades. Has to happen. We have to hold phosphate companies accountable for their pollution. And again, we have to prioritize above ground water storage and conveyance instead of injection wells. With what we've got coming down the road, we do not need to be pumping water into our planet instead of flowing it where it needs to go, south. So we've put together through the website a very functional, easy to follow voter guide. With the hard work of these volunteer captains and Bull Sugar staff, we were able to send questionnaires to candidates for offices from both coasts. We asked their positions on 5 major issues facing water quality in the state. Answers to the surveys, as well as other considerations, helped us rate candidates in nearly every major race in these 14 counties. We didn't cover every race, but we did cover, and you can see this on the screen, but you can go to your website, votewater.org, and you can see that we did cover the U.S. congressional district races, the state House and Senate races, and county commissioner races. And to follow one through with Dade County, a lot of you guys that are following this today are from Dade County. Daniela is the perfect candidate for us to follow. If you go to, you click on Dade County, you click on Daniela, you can get to where she has made comments, and you can see where she has answered yes to the questions, all 5 questions. You can get details to those questions, and it's going to be I think an evolving process where we're able to provide even more information in the future. But right now we are providing, I think, people that don't have the opportunity to do this kind of research. So you can click on each one of these questions. It will tell you the questions and how the candidate responded to them. In reference to the ratings, you can sort of see on the screen here. It's not exactly black and white. There's a good, better, or best option. There's a 1 check, 2 check, or 3 checks. The 3 checks, they've been endorsed. Those are the candidates who we feel who will prioritize water over the other important issues that we've got going on in the world today. But still, we want somebody, even though we might not agree with them on their entire platform, what they think about all the different things going on in the world. But if they will prioritize water, we are going to elevate them beyond their opponent. So you see a good, better, best on the key, and that's where we need to go. There's another. You can see right now it's not on the screen, but the DM is a dirty money. It's a dirty money sort of you see three little emojis, the red being the worst, being dirty. There's mixed. They've taken some sugar money. Just today, we spent a lot of time. One of the vote water captains wrote a long piece exactly spelling out who the dirt water notorious dirty dozen are. And these are people from around the state. If there's one of them from your district in this dirty dozen, the worst of the 25 that we have called out as taking money from the polluters, contact them. Write an op-ed to the newspaper. There's not much time, and already a quarter of the state has already voted. But this is where we have to call these people out. Is not just in what they say, but what they do. And so we will be rating them going forward. Like I mentioned, there's a good, better, best. That's the 3 checks. The vote water captains then broke up into regions and made these ratings. But like I mentioned with the dirty money, that's going to be something that's going to really be expanded on. It was a lot of research to find this. It's all public information. It's not subjective. We're not going after any particular party or person. These are the people that are taking money from the polluters. And this is how we stop from essentially can kicking. It's how we finally stop, essentially the corruption that has been running water politics in our state for over 100 years. And so, Daniela, if you've been able to make it on, I'd like to have you tell us how you're going to vote water.
Hi, I'm not sure that we have Daniela yet connected.
Oh,
yes, excellent. Commissioner, good
I'm
afternoon.
fine. I'm so
How are
sorry. I
you?
was waiting someplace else in Zoom Nirvana.
Our water
No.
warriors here.
No issue. We're so glad to have you with us. Thank you so
on my
much.
telephone screen, so you're a little small, but anyway, great to see you.
So how are you doing? I've seen you all over the internet, social media. You've been super active, running around. How are you doing? I mean, you seem always super energetic. I'm always in awe.
Thank
How much ground you can
Yes,
cover
actually, I'm
in
doing very
24
well. It's only 12 days to go. I feel extremely eager to get there. I'm like done with campaigning. I'm ready to lead. And, I've had my full dose of learning from everybody, integrating the issues. I have so many ideas. Now let's get started.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about your water warrior title. I mean, we're obviously here talking about vote water guides and clean water, and I know you've been an advocate for that for so many years. So would you mind maybe sharing some of that
Yes,
with
thank you so
our
much. Thanks
audience
to everybody
today?
who's on. Look, vote water, like the best endorsement of all. So how did it happen? I am a lawyer and a social worker. I've always worked for families and community issues, foster care, guardian ad litem. I started a nonprofit that focused on lifting people into the middle class, making them more civically active. So the environment was like my spare time. It wasn't my work time, because our family vacations, well, starting at age 5, I was hiking the Adirondacks with my dad every Sunday. So, I'm definitely an outdoors woman. And then we traveled the world. Wherever we went, we were exploring the incredible beauty and of the outdoor world. And then when I moved finally to Florida 40 years ago, my husband grew up on the water. And also we were courting in Atlanta, where we were doing river kayaking, learning all of that. So we have done the most extraordinary vacations, right? We've crossed the river of grass from Tamiami Trail out to Flamingo. That's a 4-day trip. Sailing across the Sawgrass. We've done that several times. We've rafted the Tatshenshini River and the Yukon, multiple other wild and scenic rivers. So our vacations are filled with love of and appreciation for the wilds. but that was not my paid work. And then I came to the county commission, and well, I was already aware, obviously, of climate change, sea level rise, and I was getting my nonprofit involved in those issues to some extent. But as county commissioner, I got there and people were not paying attention. It was like, let's do another report. It'll take a few years. Eventually we'll think of something that might be useful to do. And I was hair on fire. There was the leaks at FPL at the nuclear power plant that was showing that were trace elements going into the bay. There was the saltwater intrusion heading to the aquifer. There were the pollution issues, the Everglades restoration issues for recharging our aquifer. And I just, again, did not see anybody else paying attention to it. And I just decided that I needed to take it on. And I gave myself that name, Water Warrior, because I was so passionate about it and I wanted others to join me. So I would do things at events like asking people to take the Water Warrior oath. They would all be water warriors. And of course, I was learning as I was going, and it's a very complicated system. My daughter, now 35, is the true environmentalist in the family. She lives in the DC area and she's conservation director at Audubon Naturalist Society, and she really is the one that taught me so much. And my niece also, who's got her degree in water conservation issues. So that's the story.
Good pedigree.
That's fantastic. So I wonder if either Deborah or Blair have any questions for each other or for Commissioner Cava. Any comments? I know the Audubon, there's obviously a connection. I know Deborah, you've been
I do have a quick question, then maybe Blair, you can take over. Danielle, it's so nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Because we're in the pandemic now and things might change in terms of how we can gather. Will there be an Everglades Coalition conference?
Right.
If you are elected mayor, how are you going to use that platform to really serve and protect our beloved Everglades?
So the good thing was we had a fish kill. A bad thing that led to increased consciousness, right? So often it takes a crisis to elevate people's concerns. I mean, we're really almost past the point of no return. So, it's not a good thing at all, but it's only good in terms of consciousness. So now we have a funded position for a chief bay officer. What happens in the bay is a direct result of what happens in the Everglades, right? We've got the freshwater flow, the runoff, all those issues and how they're all interrelated. I have run on a very strong environmental ticket, and I've been so proud to have earned all the environmental endorsements that could possibly be earned, and to have said on the campaign trail that I will take this as top priority. Of course, we're distracted by COVID and the economic downturn, which we must address. But the good thing is that we can use this as an opportunity to invest in infrastructure. So we're hopeful that there'll be a change in Washington, that we'll get some real environmentally focused infrastructure money, that will allow us to double down on the kinds of engineering projects that will fix our septic to sewer, our water and sewer system, and create jobs, good jobs along the way. But the other thing is, I've said I would elevate DERM, our Department of Environmental Regulation, and the collaboration between our Water and Sewer Department, DERM, and our Resilience Office. I do plan the Resilience Office to be in my office. It's not going to be buried, several levels down in the org chart. And then they have to work together because there is nobody in charge of the Everglades in Miami-Dade County government. There is nobody with responsibility. When I came in as early water warrior, I discovered that there was nobody at a policy level really monitoring the South Florida Water Management District. We had some staff that attended, which was good, but we didn't have a lobbyist assigned. Information was not coming to the commission. So I had to work really hard to get myself appointed to the 9-county coalition, was it? 9, 11, all the south of the lake counties that were lobbying together. I got a lobbyist appointed to monitor the water management district. So you can be assured that those things are going to be priorities. I'm going to have policy people addressing them, not through the commission, in the mayor's office, because it is incumbent upon us to be monitoring and pushing for the right water policies, including Everglades restoration.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's exactly what we need to have. And Danielle, I'm not sure if you're aware of what the city of Stewart, one of the city commissioners, was threatening a lawsuit against the Army Corps of Engineers for the release of toxic water into their city waters. And
Wow.
And it made a difference. And we tried to get other cities of the affected estuaries involved and in sort of in support of this. And so they got to the point of not filing the action, but it got the attention of the colonel in Jacksonville. And so my hope for you, because we do have a void, and that's something that you just spoke about at the district level. They hear from the utility companies and the water users. They don't hear from conservation and environmental folks. I've been to meetings, not with necessarily right now with the district, but with the Lake Okeechobee System Operational Manual. This is the process, LOSUM, that is being, it's a multi-year project to create a new playbook for how this system, not the lake, but the entire system is managed. And right now, the conservation, the people that are concerned about ecology are not being heard at these meetings. And you have the opportunity to be in these meetings, to be heard. And I feel this is so important because all of it starts local. It starts at the city level, it starts at the county level, and then it goes from there. Because if you don't have the support at the local level, you're not going to get support at the congressional level or at the district, or the water management district, or at the Corps.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we found out that there was a vote or, a letter was written that included reference to Miami-Dade County supporting a decision that I didn't agree with at all. It had not gone to the mayor. It had not gone to the commission, and it was a policy position of the county. So nobody was paying attention. And, I really doubled down on the different administrators to say, like, how could you let that go? How could you be so passive about something that's so incredibly important to our future, to our water supply? Not going to be on my watch. It would be very different.
That's why we need you to be our mayor. We're all here cheering for you.
Thank you. 12 more days. 12 more days.
Exactly, 12 more days. Blair, I was hoping you might talk a little bit about how you became so engaged with water and maybe about the genesis of bull sugar.
Well, my personal involvement was through somewhat of an osmosis process. My father made it his life work, his last 20 years of his life. And he was in an office next to mine. He started Florida Sportsman Magazine 51 years ago, and he was an investigative reporter for the Miami Herald, as was my mother. And so when he started a fishing magazine, he felt like he could do more than just create interest in the fishing aspect of it. He fought for environmental justice from the very beginning with like stopping the cross-state barge canal. In 1970, we ran a story on the harmful effects of burning sugarcane in the EAA, what that meant to the entire South Florida ecology and to human health. And so that was something that I couldn't help to sort of avoid. I was running the magazine, and he was doing his best to finally stop some of the things that we're working about now and working on now. And the one thing that really started the whole idea with Vote Water was the reason he felt nothing had been done in his lifetime. And that was that our politicians lacked the political will to make change. And he told me that over and over. Whenever we would hit a stumbling block, we would hit something that we felt was going to be good, and it just sort of evaporated. And that was the idea, again, that our politicians in office lacked the political will to make change. And so what we started with Bull Sugar and now Vote Water is an effort to find politicians with the political will who will prioritize water and make change. And so that's sort of my background. It's sort of the background, the founder of Bull Sugar, when it was a personal friend, when he told me he wanted to get involved in the process of trying to save the river up here in St. Lucie in the St. Lucie estuary area. I told him, you need to speak to my dad. I told my dad, this guy's got money, he's got time, and he's smart. You got to talk to him. And so he spent a lot of time working with him, and he was just one of 3 guys who started Bull Sugar. And it was the idea of it's corruption. And so, again, it was one of those things where a lot of things came into sort of an alignment to create the Vote Water. We had an organization, Florida Bay Forever, that had registered votewater.org. We had a group on the West Coast that started a Facebook group called Vote Water, #Vote Water. And we had a group, Friends of the Everglades, that registered Vote Water hyphen with a hyphen in it because there was already somebody with Vote Water. So it seemed like we had 3 estuaries, all with the right idea, the same idea. We all got together and basically put the votewater.org together through Bull Sugar. And that's sort of how it all came about. And it's been evolving. It's been one of those processes. Each week we meet, the county captains meet, and with the idea that, number one, we're going to try to make the best process we can to select these candidates so people can go and easily see who are going to be the water warriors, hopefully putting Daniela up there as one of the 3 warriors that we have highlighted, and to where people feel that, this is where I want to be. This is how I think I would like to be remembered. And more importantly, we want them to fear us. Maybe this cycle we missed because we started just 8 months ago on this whole process of the Vote Water. But we would like to be feared in the next cycle, that you wouldn't want to be on that dirty money, sort of dirty dozen list. And so that's sort of where we came from and where we are now.
That's fantastic. Well, and I know you have a huge following, so the fear factor will come because people want to be seen in the right light, and the following and the fan that you gather in such a short amount of time certainly speaks for what you guys are doing, what you stand for. And Deborah, I mean, both obviously you and I come from the art angle, right? And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how, you as a practicing artist, as a curator, and obviously in your role as a director of ARI, how you think art can really has an impact on policy. I mean, Blair said something that makes a lot of sense. It's, data shows that science doesn't count. People often don't listen to science, and obviously, unfortunately, we've been witnessing this with the COVID pandemic. And obviously, we know that art can touch places where cold data don't go. So I was hoping you can talk a little bit about how you came to your sort of environmental activism through your art. Mm-hmm. And your role at ARI, if you'd like to, and how sort of that informed also the work that you're doing today.
Thanks. Well, I think it's really, really important for everyone to think about seeing an image that evokes a visceral reaction. The one that pops into my head right now, because I'm speaking to you from my home studio in Miami Beach, is the image of somebody lapping through rising waters during king tides. That is what is happening right now. And that's why I think sometimes art can really evoke those visceral reactions, whether you're a child, a senior citizen, a student, an educator, art can hit us all in different ways. Some people appreciate the deeper messages behind contemporary art, and other people are really happy to love those old images by Audubon. It doesn't really matter. If you're listening to a sonata or reading a book that touches you, you're more likely, in my opinion, to take action because you're becoming passionate for that issue. I think you have to love something to really want to understand it more, and vice versa. I'm no longer in that role that I was for ARI. I'm working on my own consultant practice right now. And with that, I'm continuing to visit field stations because I feel like I can learn directly from the scientists, the people who are learning about the data and recording it. It's a really exciting time for me because of that. Speaking of Audubon, a question popped into my mind, Daniela. You mentioned that one of your family members was involved with them. And through my classes at University of Florida, I'm doing a Master Naturalist class right now. I saw this amazing video recently where a golf course on the West Coast, I think it was Naples, actually had a contract to consult with Audubon before they did a renovation. And Audubon ensured that everything was done in a natural system with a lot of buffer zones, no pesticides, and the data was collected pre and post renovation. And post renovation, wouldn't you know it, they had a lot more animals and birds and fish coming to that area. So I think that kind of speaks a little bit to what Blair was saying before, is you build on those relationships, which I know you've been doing for years, Daniela. If elected mayor, can you give some examples of ways that some of your community contacts and relationships can help make recreation and life a little bit better in South Florida?
Thank you. What a great question and example. I love that example. So like an environmental impact statement, but one that is very participatory, right? Where you're bringing in the people that are paying attention to that particular issue and like Audubon certified, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I'll have to think about how we can incorporate that idea. You know, I think mostly what it is that the advocacy community and the scientific community has to be at the table. Because, like, I'll give you an example right now, resilience. I understand that each department in the county is kind of tasked on their own to make their capital projects fit within a resilience framework. But there's really nobody necessarily advising them technically about that, or checking the boxes to make sure what's been done. It's kind of a very decentralized. Now we have an Office of Resilience, but they haven't been staffed at a level to provide that kind of technical assistance. So that is something that people have talked to me about, you know, how to really put the science into that, and then put the advocacy into it. So I want to be much more transparent about the kinds of decisions, the budgeting process, and all of that. Another example is in the water and sewer rebuild, which is mandated by the federal government because of the spills that have happened before. It basically, a department can delay certain projects and put others ahead without real discussion with the public about the urgency or the prioritization of those projects. And that's not okay either. Comes to find out, the biggest spill that we've had happened on a project that was delayed like for 10 years. So, you know, it was all in the program, but just kept, you know, kicking the can down the road. So I just think we have to really work closely. And I'll give an example of where we have been hopefully starting to do it. So I was a sponsor of the first annual Health of the Biscayne Bay Summit. And out of that summit, we learned in the Chesapeake area that they have an annual report card that works across the multiple jurisdictions. You know, Maryland, Virginia, I think New Jersey are all on the Chesapeake. And so they work together on plans for reducing the nutrient load into the Chesapeake. And then they hold each other accountable, and they work with the community groups and with the governments to get it done. So I thought, great idea. I got legislation passed to do a State of the Bay for our Biscayne Bay. And it's 2 years later, and it's never seen the light of day. It's actually been produced. A first draft was rejected. A second draft has been sitting on the mayor's desk for months. I've done, you know, everything I could think of to extract it from his desk. And I shouldn't be the one complaining. Actually, now that we should have all the environmental groups sending calls, texts, letters to the editors demanding. In the meantime, another commissioner has sponsored this task force on the Bay, which was originally my legislation, but she took it away from me because she had once upon a time done a task force. So she wanted to have this one. Great. But then it was delayed a year to get the people in place. And now that report sat on the desk until the dead fish showed up in the Bay. Mm-hmm. So, it's got to be a collaboration with the public, the advocacy groups, the policy groups, constantly being at the table pushing to get these things done.
No, I agree 100% with you, Danielle. As a matter of fact, in terms of a coalition, I was speaking with my local congressman about an idea that he had, and that was to get basically after the election all of the various stakeholders in a room and put them in the position to be on the same team, be on the same side, and that would be city, county, state, and federal representatives. Do you think that would be useful, and would you see, the time that you would spend with Debbie McChrystal Powell and some of the other state representatives in the room? Do you see that as being useful?
Absolutely, and I plan to do that. And Congresswoman Mucarsel Powell, who's a dear friend and someone I've supported from the outset, has been very active at the federal level. Of course, it has to get through the Senate too, right? The innovation from Congress. And, hopefully she'll be reelected and continue her forum advocacy. And I was recently told that one of her best collaborators is Congressman Brian Mast, who of course is on the other side of the political spectrum, but united in concerns about the environment. So, we need to work our delegation. We need to work our state and federal delegation. And Congresswoman Shalala had said when she was elected that we would be doing that. But instead, they got caught up in impeachment and now this presidential. But so I think if we can get through 12 more days, get the right people in place, we'll be able to transform. We'll be able to transform this conversation.
No, I look forward to that.
And I'll say one other thing. This current county mayor, has not had a proactive policy agenda, and of course not about environment anyway. So I plan to have a very robust external affairs, governmental affairs team, and we will be working it very hard. Yes.
No, I think you've done a great job of stating your case on where we need to be in our sort of cycle, in terms of when it comes to vote water. And this is exactly why people need to hear. Now, we unfortunately aren't being seen by hundreds of thousands of people right now. There's so many things going on, but this is going to be our charge moving forward, is to amplify meetings like this, amplify candidates like yourself who will prioritize water, the environment, and ecology, and then we have a chance. So I really appreciate you doing what you're doing. And hopefully we can help you get to that next.
If I could just mention as well, I've been chairing the South Florida Regional Planning Council, which is Monroe, Dade, and Broward. And when was it? Friday, I think, there was a joint meeting with the Treasure Coast Council, and it was on the subject of water. So, I'm distracted by the campaign, so I wasn't able to fully participate, but it was my idea. I really pushed to hold it. And of course, we have to solve these problems regionally as well.
So we are coming almost to the end. We do have a question from the audience, and I think Commissioner Cava is probably the best suited one to answer, and that is, how can we get leaders in Tallahassee to do more for clean water?
Thank you. And I have served on the Florida Association of Counties Special Water Committee exactly with that in mind, and bringing together all the counties unified. There is some competition. I mean, just to be clear about where dollars go. Obviously, our springs are at risk. The discharges from Lake Okeechobee that have gone, east and west, and so those communities at so much at risk. The communities above the lake and what's being discharged. So it's a very complicated situation, and we should not be pitting ourselves against each other. We really need to look at it holistically, and we need to look at it honestly. And I do think that this, I think it's 12, it's the 12 county coalition now that I think of it. We need to really activate that in a way and call, and Miami-Dade has never been active in it. So we need to all be together looking at these water issues. This governor is more interested in these issues than the previous governor. So that's hopeful. And we just have to get the right ones in the state House and Senate so we can push together. That's my plan.
Good.
That's a wonderful plan. And again, we couldn't stress it more. Everybody out there, make sure you vote. Early voting, I'm actually not in Florida now, but early voting started 2 days ago. Am I correct?
Yes.
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 Could I just mention, because I couldn't put in the chat, that my website is daniela.vote. I would welcome all help, volunteering, networking, tell your friends, and donations. So we're still in the push, 12 more days, and it's feeling strong, but obviously we take nothing for granted. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I've been doing a lot of door hanging for you and some of the other candidates before I left. So
Thank you.
I can't vote because I'm actually not a citizen, but I do whatever else I can to make sure others vote and vote the right way. So thank you so much again for being with us today. Blair and Deborah, this was fantastic. Again, huge thanks to Bull Sugar and Ali for hosting us. And please go out and vote. Any last thoughts, Blair or Deborah?
Likewise, I would just like to thank you all. I think it's been a very invigorating discussion. And as Commissioner Cava said, we need a lot more of this. So thank you, Blair and Umbretta, for organizing it so wonderfully. And Commissioner Cava, it's been a pleasure, and best of luck with the election. Yeah.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.